Welcome to your Houston Rewind for February 6th through the 10th. I'm KHOU 11 digital anchor Brandy Smith. We know catching up on the news can be a little overwhelming, especially in a city like Houston where it never seems to stop. So every weekend, we take this opportunity to fill you in on some of the stories you may have missed. Let's rewind. A powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocked Turkey and Syria on Monday, killing at least 21,000 people, a number that grew throughout the week. The quake also destroyed thousands of buildings. Zach Tawatari spoke to Houstonians who have loved ones in the region affected.
Images of destruction and devastation from Turkey and Syria after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocked the area near the country's border. The death toll so far in the thousands, with even more injuries.
But there he is.
Syrian-American Ahmad Abdin owns Crown Automotive and Body Shop with his brother and says their father and family in Syria are packed in a car.
They're sleeping in the street on the car because of under the train bridge.
Ready to go at a moment's notice.
They say everybody needs help right now because they're all on the street. They're scared to be in the house because building they saw it, building collapsing.
The quake's epicenter near Kahraman Maraş.
I can't even find the words. It's like terrible, devastating.
Ebru Ak of the American Turkish Association of Houston says much of her family is stranded because of the damage caused to infrastructure, thanks to the biggest earthquake in the area in 100 years, with aftershocks felt across the region. One of those, a second trembler, registered a confirmed 7.5 magnitude.
We lost our roads and airports, and most of the government buildings are impacted.
And for the survivors and first responders, frigid conditions.
Most of the area is under the snow.
And many of those Syrians, refugees, having faced years of war, and now this.
People are frustrated from, of the war, of course. Now this happened for them. I mean, I'm sure those people are just miserable right now.
Zach Tawatari, KHOU 11 News.
In just a few minutes, we'll show you additional efforts made by Houstonians to help those affected by the most devastating quake to hit in at least 10 years. Disturbing and disappointing. On Monday, that's how Houston city leaders described the discovery of human remains in a median. Yes, a median in Lockwood Avenue, just south of the East Freeway in the 5th Ward. The grave sites were supposed to be moved when Lockwood was expanded decades ago, something that clearly didn't happen. Jason Miles explains what happens now.
What's known as the Evergreen Negro Cemetery tells the story of more than 100 years of history.
Many people were buried here.
And is the final resting place for generations of African Americans, primarily from the 1890s through the 1930s, from veterans including Buffalo soldiers to 5th Ward founders and the formerly enslaved, as signified by the representation of chains on this marker.
It shows the legacy of what our people did.
Lisa Jedkins is with Project Respect, which oversees the cemetery and knows much of its past.
It's 1945. This is Lockwood here.
Including when the cemetery was bisected by a Lockwood Avenue expansion, resulting in the reinterment of more than 400 bodies around 1960 that were in the way.
But they were supposed to have removed all of them. All of them.
Mayor Sylvester Turner and others announcing today that crews doing preliminary work for a rapid rail and drainage project recently made a disturbing discovery beneath what is now this esplanade or median. Specifically, remnants of coffins and other effects, and significant remains of at least 3 people.
And it is clear that the city and its contractors did not remove all of the persons that were buried in Evergreen Negro Cemetery.
Turner says the oversight, intentional or not, was way before his time, but will be corrected before the project resumes by respectfully reinterring any remains.
We're going to give them a proper burial.
Paying respects years after a monumental mistake.
Jason asked city leaders whether it's possible to identify any of the remains left in the median. He was told DNA collection might be possible, though the challenge would be not having samples with which to compare them. KHOU 11 is your education station, and Monday we highlighted the students of Fort Bend Christian Academy, who earned national recognition for their latest theater production. Marcelino Benito took us inside this one-of-a-kind performance.
Walk, 2, 3.
For 5 years now, something one-of-a-kind's been coming to life at Fort Bend Christian Academy.
We took a chance and we combined our classes, and it was a lot of sweat and tears.
Theater joined forces with ASL, two groups of students crafting shadow plays designed for members of the deaf community. Theater students would act, ASL students would simultaneously sign. But this year, they decided to go one step further.
But this was our first year we did a musical.
We crossed those worlds for the first time ever with having to pull in non-singing, non-dancing, non-acting students and say, you can do this. We took a leap of faith and we took a chance with that.
Getting the students to believe it was possible was the first big challenge for this history-making program.
Honestly, I was really scared when I found out that it was a musical.
ASL students had to learn to act, sing, and dance, and theater students had to learn to sign for their production of Godspell Jr.
It's really difficult to do a musical with singing and dancing alone, let alone learning an entirely different language on top of that.
Everyone out of their comfort zone. Somehow, magic happened.
It ended up being beautiful.
This small high school campus in Sugar Land took their show to the Junior Theater Festival in Atlanta, and their performance on stage left a mark on the audience and an entire, often neglected community.
When will thou save the people?
Their ASL integrated musical wowed the judges.
Sign language is so beautiful, and you guys did it so beautifully.
Earning outstanding production and the chance to perform on the main stage for nearly 7,000 people.
We got to show all of those people what an awesome and beautiful production you can put on with ASL and theater simultaneously combined.
A life-changing performance.
It meant something so beautiful to all of us.
That means even more to those who saw it up close.
The response that we got was honestly so amazing. We knew that this was more than just a performance. It meant something to so many people.
In Sugar Land, Marcelino Benito, KHOU 11 News.
Sixteen local schools advanced to the Sweet 16 of the Read to the Final Four competition on Monday. These third graders logged millions of minutes reading. Ugochi Aloka visited one of the campuses.
We are here at Burchett Elementary School in Spring ISD with DJ She Jam. Yeah, that's right. It's a party. We are celebrating how this school and several other schools made it into the Sweet 16 bracket for the Read to the Final Four competition. You will hear from people at the school about why they're excited and how they plan to make it all the way.
I was like so surprised. I was like, oh gosh.
These are some of the Burchett Elementary School third graders who've loved being a part of this reading challenge. What's your favorite book?
The Haunted Hotel in the Wood.
Barrett Elementary in Crosby ISD and Cottonwood Elementary in Cleveland ISD also made the Sweet 16 cut, along with these other schools you see on your screen.
How our scholars really took it and brought their Burchett best along with this competition. I mean, it's just amazing to see how much the students have learned, grown, and they're genuinely excited about reading. 2 Spring ISD schools have made the Sweet 16 bracket.
Oh, wow. Did you bring your Burchett best in this reading competition?
The top 8 schools will be announced next Monday, and teachers are getting the students ready now.
The kids come in and they want to talk about who read the most pages last night on Mayan, or who competing to see who can read the most minutes over the weekend.
The schools that advance to the Final Four will attend the Read to the Final Four celebration at the Men's Final Four Fan Fest, something that set a spark in students.
This competition has just been a little bit of a push for that. Okay, I'll try. You know, some of our reluctant readers, and they've learned to love to read, I think.
Also, those who make it to the Final Four will head over to the Reese's Final Four Friday at NRG Stadium on March 31st. Reporting from Burchett Elementary School in Spring ISD, Ugochi Iloka, KHOU 11 News.
At least 20 inmates died in Harris County jail facilities each of the past 2 years, and there have been 3 in just more than a month in 2023. According to data from TDCJ, the last times the number reached more than 20 in a year was back in 2008. That disturbing trend prompted community leaders and victims' families to call on the Justice Department to investigate on Tuesday. Gerald Harris shared their concerns.
Just be accountable. These people have people at home.
The call for accountability for inmates dying or being injured while in custody reached the doorsteps of the Harris County Sheriff's Office.
This is a shame what's taking place in this jail.
From community activists to mothers like Tracy Woodson Smith, her son Kevin Smith died in Harris County custody in January. They say due to a medical emergency.
This death right here would not go unsolved.
But she says her son, who has a young daughter and was preparing for his release, died under suspicious circumstances, and she wants to get to the bottom of it.
Y'all don't have the decency to call and tell a parent, a family, nothing that's going on with their loved ones in here.
Jacqueline Stain Barrett's husband, Gregory Barrett, was found unresponsive a day after complaining of illness in 2021 on the floor in an isolation cell with a gash in his forehead.
It shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have lost my heart in this jail.
Even former inmates are speaking out against what they call inhumane treatment. Tron Medee said he was retaliated against and laughed at by jail staff after being transferred and beaten, he alleges, leaving him battling injuries.
I can't play with my kids like I want to. I'm still going through surgeries. I can't do my job.
According to numbers compiled by KHOU with data from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, the last time inmate deaths reached more than 20 was in 2006 and 2008.
Gerald reached out to Sheriff Ed Gonzalez for an interview regarding these allegations. As of Friday afternoon, he had not heard back. If that changes, we'll update the article on KHOU.com. A warning from the Houston Zoo Tuesday: anyone caught messing with zoo animals or their habitats will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Zookeepers say someone cut a 4-inch gap in the mesh around the pelican exhibit. Matt Doherty broke down the measures taken to keep the animals safe.
Air 11 flew over the Houston Zoo this afternoon when police showed up to investigate what zookeepers had found. In the children's zoo, staff members noticed a 4-inch gap in the mesh surrounding the brown pelican habitat. Zoo officials believe it was done by a person and are calling it a case of vandalism. All of the birds were still in their habitats and appeared to have been unharmed. Staff members then went around the zoo confirming no other animal habitats were damaged either. A statement from a Houston Zoo spokesperson reads in part, quote, "The Houston Zoo is prepared to prosecute to the fullest extent allowed by law anyone who compromises the animals in our care. We will not tolerate the theft or endangerment of any of our animals, big or small." The incident comes on the heels of other vandalism incidents and thefts of animals from the Dallas Zoo last month. Dallas police arrested a man accused of first cutting a hole in the clouded leopard enclosure, trying to steal it on January 13th. It ended up escaping through the hole, but was found nearby. Then 2 weeks later, the same man is accused of stealing a pair of emperor tamarin monkeys and stashing them in the closet of a vacant home in freezing temperatures. Thanks to a tip, the monkeys were rescued. That suspect is charged with animal cruelty and burglary. Back in Houston, the zoo gave us this statement saying, quote, "These animals represent their wild counterparts and are entirely dependent upon the care of our staff. Actions that threaten that care are unacceptable, dangerous, and criminal." From the Houston Zoo, I'm Matt Doherty, KHOU 11 News.
Houston's getting ready to host the Final Four, and 2,500 volunteers will play an important role. Tuesday, Dave Freilich stepped us through the process of getting volunteers ready to greet the world.
When the sports world turns its attention to Houston for the Final Four, the remaining top teams will be hard at work, and thousands of rabid fans will be hard at play. At the same time, the group of volunteers Final Four volunteer manager Mackenzie Skurla is putting together will help make sure everyone has an experience to remember.
I was speaking to a volunteer at our last event, and we were talking about, why do you do this? Why are you out here? And, she basically said, I'm Houston. I'm out and I am representing my community. And, we want the world to see Houston for what it is. We are a diverse community, and our volunteers really represent that.
No matter where fans and visitors go during Final Four weekend, volunteers who've been trained in an orientation session will be there, answering questions at information desks and more.
We have more interactive roles that will be inside of FanFest, inside of March Madness Music Festival, out at Tip-Off Tailgate. those volunteers will help out with those interactives and be more hands-on with those guests and helping them just enjoy the fun of the weekend.
While many of the volunteers are retirees or people who are just here to make sure Houston is seen in the best light possible, for some of these volunteers, the experience could lead to something more.
We have an internship program that opens up new doors, but also just being a volunteer gets you out into the community and gets you around a lot of new people that you might not see every day. So it's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience that you never know who you might bump into.
As of late last month, the Final Four already had 70% of the volunteers it needed, but some shifts are still available. If you'd like to sign up to be a volunteer, look for this article on KHOU.com. Why now? That's what reporter Adam Bennett asked a spokesperson for Governor Abbott on Wednesday after the governor sent out a controversial memo.
This is the letter sent earlier this week by Governor Greg Abbott's chief of staff to leaders of state agencies and public universities. In it, Gardner Pate writes that diversity, equity, and inclusion policies have, quote, been manipulated to push policies that expressly favor some demographic groups to the detriment of others. Pate says an agency is not following the law when it, quote, adjusts its employment practices based on factors other than merit. This afternoon, the Texas Black Legislative Caucus released a statement pushing back, saying eliminating DEI initiatives was wrong. Quote, far too often, African Americans and minorities have been excluded from being considered for jobs, even though they were qualified. I strongly oppose Governor Abbott's stance.
It's so disappointing.
Bishop James Dixon is president of Houston's NAACP branch. He says disparities still exist from discriminatory policies decades ago.
So we have still a long way to go. And for that to be released in Black History Month is even more of an insult.
KHOU 11 political analyst Bob Stein says Governor Abbott's memo sends a message to his base.
It's all about messaging to people who might consider him a viable candidate for, and you can fill in the blank, president, vice president, maybe even a cabinet appointment.
Bishop Dixon expects the NAACP to respond with a letter stating its opposition and is calling for public discussion on the issue. A Houston firefighter is on a long road to recovery after he fell through a burning roof while on the job last weekend. Wednesday, Lauren Tallarico shared how his support is coming in from across the country.
It's about 10:30 this past Saturday morning. Houston Firehouse 26 is dispatched to an apartment fire in southeast Houston.
We had heavy fire coming from an apartment.
Among those fighting the blaze is 26-year-old Donovan Apiag. In a few seconds, his life will change.
By this time now, it's basically a raging inferno.
Senior Captain Joseph Flores is on the roof with Apiag when it collapses and Apiag falls through. You can see Flores jump into action.
To look down in that hole, it was just a sea of red. That's all it was. It was just a sea of red and just super hot.
Apiag's on the attic floor. His team reach in.
I wasn't letting him go. We were getting him out, 100%. He was coming home.
He did get out. His gear melted, his skin burned.
I hurt for Don, you know. Sorry.
It's hard for Flores to relive these moments.
Sorry.
Sorry. Apiag, a husband, a father, an Air Force veteran, is still in Memorial Hermann with 2nd and 3rd degree burns. He's already had surgery and he'll likely need more.
Occupational therapy, physical therapy, and then the mental side of it too.
Which is why his station started a GoFundMe account to help. In just 2 days, more than $40,000 have been raised to help his family pay bills.
Community support has been amazing.
Apiag's a fighter.
He's tough. I'm just at utter amazement by him.
And as he starts this battle for his health, he's certainly not fighting alone.
We call it a brotherhood and sisterhood. It's true. And the citizens of Houston just absolutely are our support, you know, when it comes to times like this.
If you'd like to help the family, you can. Just check for links in this article on KHOU.com. How do you know if you can trust someone? A new study from Rice University says you can't tell by looking at them because looks can be deceiving. Stephanie Whitfield dug into the research on Wednesday.
Deciding if someone is trustworthy can be a tricky business. Rick Wilson, a professor of political science at Rice University, says making the right call requires a lot more than looking someone in the eye.
Turns out people think that they're really good at figuring out who they can trust.
and they take great pride in thinking that they can trust people, and yet they're really bad at it.
He came to that conclusion after conducting a two-part experiment with real people and real money. First, one person had to send cash to a stranger, trusting they'd split it with them and send some back.
So we measure trust, how much you send, trustworthiness, how much you return.
The second part of the study asked others to decide who in the first group was trustworthy based on their picture alone.
Turns out things like the gender of a subject or their skin color or whether they're smiling are all predictors of biased beliefs.
The study found people's ability to judge trustworthiness was barely better than a coin flip. The conclusion? You really can't judge a book by its cover. Stephanie Whitfield, KHOU 11 News.
Homicides are down in Harris County in the city of Houston, but the number of people killed in domestic violence incidents doubled over the past 3 years. Anna Yeli Ruiz talked to University of Houston researchers who hope their eye-opening study leads to more help for victims before it's too late.
A new study done by researchers at the University of Houston reveals a domestic violence problem in our area is only getting deadlier. Specifically, researchers pulled numbers from the Harris County Sheriff's Office and HPD on homicides between intimate partners.
It's between spouses or girlfriend, boyfriends, or ex-partners.
In 2019, they found 32 people in domestic violence were killed, and that made a huge jump to 64 people in 2022. A statistic the shelter feels matches what they're seeing.
Tragically, we were not shocked. We've been on the front lines of this epidemic.
Researchers also found that Black women made 52% of the female domestic violence homicides, even though they comprise 20% of Harris County women.
When you have a history of disinvestment in communities, and when you have systematic barriers that prevent people from getting equal pay, access to services, education, housing, healthcare, they are going to be more vulnerable.
So why the uptick? Researchers say a number of factors are at play: stress, isolation, economics, housing, and even the new open carry permitless law in Texas.
Well, what about this availability of guns? This is, wider availability of guns in terms of permitless carry is having a direct influence on people's lives.
Researchers believe the financial dependency for women and the lack of equal pay also plays a role.
If women, who oftentimes are the primary caregivers and providers for their children, are forced to choose between being homeless with their children or being in an abusive situation, then they may stay in an abusive situation.
There is help available if you or someone you know is dealing with a dangerous situation. The Houston Area Women's Center is here to support you 24 hours a day with its hotline. Call 713-528-2121 for help. Houstonians with ties to Turkey and Syria spent Thursday praying for those impacted by a devastating earthquake there. Jason Miles reported they're also looking for ways to help.
In one room at the Turkish Cultural Center,
O merciful God,
multiple faiths shared a common prayer for those directly and indirectly impacted by an earthquake half a world away.
Make us unshaken in our commitment to one another.
More than 20,000 are now confirmed dead from the earthquake that struck parts of Turkey and Syria, as rescue crews from some 23 countries try to locate any survivors amid mountains of debris.
Thousands of lives have been lost.
Orhan Osman is president of the Texas Turkish-American Chamber of Commerce and survived a devastating earthquake himself in Turkey back in 1999.
But this time it's way worse than that because it happens in 10 different cities.
Miraculous recoveries, including this one of a small child, have helped keep many hopeful, including Osman, whose good friend experienced a similar rescue.
He lost his brother, biological brother, and the brother's wife, and one child. And thanks God, and the other child was rescued alive. after 2 days.
Like many, he said it's difficult to watch news coverage of the disaster, but is grateful thanks to support in Houston and elsewhere. Those affected will get any help they need.
If you want to help by donating food, supplies, or money to rescue and recovery groups, we have a list of resources on KHOU.com. With Rodeo Houston just around the corner, we know some of you city folk are scrambling to get your rodeo gear ready. You know the outfit: boots, belt, and hat.
A hat is so personal. When people get a hat that they love, they keep it for years and years.
So when customers pop into this Cavender's along the Northwest Freeway, Lawrence Jogno isn't pushy.
The only person that's going to rush you is you.
He's the hatter here. On social media, he's the Houston hat guy.
You have to be a little crazy, and you also have to have a passion for hats. I've been a hat nerd ever since I was a teenager, and after I retired, I picked up my hobby, and now I do it full time.
I've never really been a hat person. That's something Lawrence hears all the time.
Well, it's because they haven't had the right hat.
So we start the journey. First step, gotta get your head measured. That does not actually involve standing on one leg, but I trusted the process. Maybe a little too much.
You are a 7 1/8.
Now choose the style you like. Cavender's has more than a few options.
Felt hats. Then, of course, we have wool hats, straw, palm, leather, any number.
What's the most popular?
A felt hat, especially for rodeo, a black felt hat.
From there, Lawrence customizes it.
The hat looks too wide on you, so I'm going to cut the brim down just a bit.
He sands it, bevels it.
Look how smooth that is.
Then starts shaping the crown.
When the felt heats up and becomes moist, then it becomes very pliable, and that's how you can put a shape on it.
If you want to know what to ask for, Lawrence swapped out the cattleman crown for an open crown, then shaped what's called a telescope or gambler on top. Finally,
more steam.
He gently rolls the brim before the final fitting.
When I shape a hat or create a hat, I look at the person's face, their structure, how tall they are, how wide they are, and then I design the hat to complement them. I always tell people they're the cake and the hat is the icing.
Just in case you didn't know this already, if you buy your hat here at the Cavender's along the Northwest Freeway, you can bring it in to have Lawrence clean it, restore it, or shape it.
If you're not confident in a hat, you're not going to wear it.
If you want that confidence but haven't been sure where to start, ask the Houston hat guy.
When you get it just right and then you put it on a person's head and they look at a mirror and they beam, then you know you've nailed it. So it's fun.
We just marked a year of exploring the Houston area's hidden gems, and now we're making it easier for you to check them out. Go to this article on KHOU.com and check out this interactive map where you can scout out your next visit to green spaces, museums, small businesses, and more. The article also includes a spreadsheet of all 56 gems we've highlighted to date. Law enforcement will be on high alert this weekend. Officers are keeping an eye out for drunk drivers who hit the road after Super Bowl parties and Mardi Gras celebrations. Brittany Ford shared their warning.
This horrifying scene on Highway 90 early Saturday morning.
And earlier that day, my mom told me, hey, like, I drove by 90 and on her way to work, and she was like, there's this big accident on the side of the road. She's like, I don't know who it was, but it looked really bad.
Maya Urban would later find out involved her 26-year-old brother Eli Rangel, who was killed by an alleged drunk driver. Urban says the driver traveling westbound on Highway 90 failed to yield, striking Eli.
He was literally getting breakfast for them, and it happened on his way back.
An issue plaguing roadways in Harris County. Numbers show the last 2 years DWI deaths have been the highest since 2018. 2021 the deadliest with nearly 190 deaths reported. Behind each tragedy, families like Urban's left to pick up the pieces.
People like us have to deal with my brother not being here.
The suspect in Urban's brother's case has been charged with DWI, charges their family hopes are upgraded.
We want justice for Elijah for that, because my brother didn't deserve that.
Friday, we heard from families of the victims of the 2018 Santa Fe high school shooting. They reached a settlement with an online gun dealer. Adam Bennett explained the changes that gun dealer will make.
Nearly 5 years after 10 students were killed at Santa Fe High School, a partial resolution in the civil case filed by their loved ones.
I think this is a great result for the families.
Carmen Rowe is KHOU 11's legal analyst.
It sends a message to the community that we're going to hold not just sellers of guns, but sellers of ammunition accountable for the deadly result that we see every day on the news.
Rowe believes that message could raise the standard across the board for ammunition sales, especially online.
I also think it could likely lead to legislation, either state or federal legislation, that will change the way that these companies are permitted to sell guns and ammunition, particularly online when they're not verifying who they're selling to and the age of the buyer.
Friday gave us our first look at the Memorial Park Land Bridge and Prairie, which officially opened to the public Saturday. Jason Miles showed us around the new 100-acre space.
Rising 40 feet above busy Memorial Drive, man-made hills will help people and wildlife more easily explore Houston's largest urban park.
We only broke ground on this project in August 2020, and look where we are now.
Mayor Sylvester Turner and others ceremonially cut a ribbon atop the Western Bridge from where vistas include downtown Houston in one direction and uptown Houston in the other.
What we've built here today and are dedicating today is going to last and be a benefit to all Houstonians for decades to come.
A generous donation by the Kinder Foundation helped expedite the $70 million project, which includes adjoining prairie, all meant to create new habitat, greater biodiversity, and better stormwater management.
What I wondered was, when it was first in the plan, if it would actually happen during my tenure or lifetime. And it did.
The landscape architect whose firm developed the park's master plan and the land bridge considers it a high point of his career and a benchmark that other cities can emulate.
I think it's a new hybrid of how we can build public infrastructure projects for the people and with the people that meet many different goals and do it beautifully,
giving both drivers and park visitors a memorable experience.
Take a look back through the process of building the land bridge on KHOU.com. Hope that helped you catch up on this past week and you are ready for the next one. Remember, you can tune into KHOU 11 on air, online via KHOU.com and YouTube, as well as by using our KHOU 11 Plus app on Roku and Fire TV. Have a great week.